So good afternoon and welcome. This afternoon I'm in conversation with John McLaughlin, and John is the Programme Coordinator of Architecture at University College Cork. So good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Jean.
So John, what is the course code for architecture at UCC?
The course code for architecture at UCC is CK606, and it's an undergraduate degree in architecture, which is a 4-year honours degree programme.
And is it run exclusively by UCC?
No, it's a joint programme between UCC and CIT in a special programme, the first of such programmes, which is at Cork Centre for Architecture Education, which has its own special dedicated building in the centre of Cork City. Is
that a recent acquisition, that new building?
The new building is very recent. We just moved into it 2 years ago, and it's part of the regeneration of the Douglas Street area in the new Nano Nagle Centre. So it's a new building that's part of an historic collection of buildings in the heart of Cork City. And it's opened up some beautiful historic spaces and gardens right in the centre of the city that we can avail of as part of our facilities.
So it's affording students an opportunity of immersing themselves in what it is they're being educated to create, in a sense.
Absolutely, and that's what we do. We design, the students design building projects for Cork City, and they can sometimes see out of the window of the building that they're working in the site of the project that they're designing.
What subjects should somebody choose for their Leaving Cert cycle, or for if they're coming from the Irish system, the Leaving Cert cycle, or elsewhere around the world? What subjects should they choose to study architecture?
Architecture is interesting because it requires people to have both an analytical and conceptual or artistic mind. And so a good combination would involve both of those. Good subjects are things, maths, obviously, physics on the science side, communications, graphics and art on the creative side, but also history, and English is also an important subject as well. Fluency in self-expression is really important as well.
When you graduate with your degree in architecture, what are the options available to you at postgraduate level?
Well, there are many options available at postgraduate level, Jean, and I suppose it really depends on whether students want to continue and go on and become fully professional architects, or whether they want to take a move into an adjacent discipline, of which there are many. So we've had graduates go into everything from designing smart cities using new digital technologies to doing masters in art programs. And many of our graduates will go on to become professional architects, either by taking the Masters in Architecture program at UCC or by taking another master's program internationally.
And what is the unique selling point about studying architecture at UCC in conjunction with Cork Institute of Technology, soon to become Munster Technological University?
Correct, Jean. I suppose what's really unique about it is that we are right in the heart of Cork City. We're allied to the two main universities in Munster, and we have, as you mentioned, an absolutely unique new building, which is part of this complex of historical buildings. So it's a really special situation where the students can work on projects for the city and region right from the heart of Cork. We have very strong relationships and alliances both with the main campuses of CIT and UCC, but also with adjacent disciplines. So for example, the Crawford College of Art, which comes under CIT, is also one of our close relationships, the National Sculpture Factory, and many of the artistic institutions in Cork, as well as the university ones.
And what strengths in research do we have at UCC and CIT that feed into the programme, the study of architecture?
Well, again, Jean, the strengths are both scientific and artistic. So within UCC and indeed in CIT, we live within the science engineering side of the university, but with a very strong link to the creative disciplines in the new School of Creative Practice. And our research comes under both areas. So we have strong research in environmental science, and there's a huge area within architecture, which is about the environment, sustainability, use of energy and materials and resources, which we are a leading researcher in, and that we form collaborations internationally with many universities for research projects. And then artistically, even though we're one of the newest schools of architecture within the country, Many of our staff have participated in national and international level, representing Ireland in international biennale and artistic events right around the globe.
So very experienced teachers on the course and researchers that the students would be exposed to.
Absolutely, experienced and doing cutting edge research, but also I think with a youth about the course and about the institution and the hunger to make new work and explore new ground. So it's very much a kind of a pioneering mindset in terms of trying to form new creative practices, new solutions to tackling issues about the environmental crisis, biodiversity crisis, which architecture has a huge potential to impact on positively.
And as the students are going through the course, are they exposed to employability skills?
They are, Jean. I mean, they are initially through, obviously, as they work their way through the course, we move from, I suppose, initially acquiring skills and then developing up to much more targeted skills that are used in practice. So architects generally, I mean, it's quite a long training. It's a prescribed profession. So in other words, nobody can just hang up a sign and say they're an architect. You have to be tested in courses that are recognized nationally through an accreditation body. It's set down and protected under Irish law and EU law. So it's quite a structured profession. And the undergraduate program is the first step into that profession. So after 4 years of full-time education, students are prepared, and particularly in their final year, where they're taught by practitioners and they're prepared for a year in practice, which we do then between undergraduate and master's programs. And there's a whole series of skills training and workshops that prepare them for that entry, and very strong links to the profession, both nationally and internationally, that help them then to find placements in companies for that year in practice. And then many people will go on after their masters to develop full careers in architecture.
So that year is actually obligatory.
It's a requirement that before you enter into the master's program, and it's necessary in order that students have experience of practice to be able to then come back to full-time education, integrating all of the learning from practice with the more academic learning that would have undertaken in the undergraduate program, and then being able to synthesize that into their master's work before going into a full-time career.
Just for clarification, you study for 4 years, you have a placement for the 5th year, so the master's that's what you graduate with.
So no, sorry, the master's then is a full-time 6th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then for that placement year, the professional year, how many companies do you interact with?
We would interact with as many companies almost as there are students, because almost every student has a unique placement. You don't have large practices taking groups of students. So some of those will happen in Ireland and we will be involved in setting those up. Sometimes the students want to travel internationally, and they can do that. They can work all over the world. Our qualifications, which are accredited nationally, are also accredited on an EU-wide basis, which makes them globally recognized. So our graduates can work almost anywhere in the world. And
the companies, how does a company make themselves known to you that they might like to take a student?
Well, it's often we've quite a strong link to the profession in Cork. The RIAI, which is the national body for accreditation body and professional body, has a southern region who have their meetings and their cultural events in our building in the city. And many of our staff are involved in those. So there's quite a strong network of practices, and they come to us if they're interested in taking somebody on a placement. But sometimes students want to go much further afield, and then they might ask us, do we know people in other places in Europe or in America or Canada, Australia? And there's quite a strong network of contacts that we can put them in touch with people right around the globe.
And do we include employers and professional bodies in delivering the undergraduate program? Absolutely. As guest lecturers, advisors, and so on?
Absolutely. There are many professional practitioners who are coming in teaching part-time in the course and forming links to the course. So an awful lot of our teaching and various inputs would come from people who are practicing professionals. And this is a really good way for the students to understand how a profession is practiced by somebody who's actually building buildings and designing and solving problems.
And do we have a mentorship program?
We have a mentorship program through the staff, in the sense that the students are mentored as they go through the course.
And is there an opportunity for students to participate, for example, in competitions, you know, to create and so on?
Absolutely. Well, the students are creating all the time. From the very beginning of first year, they're designing projects creatively. They work in studio spaces, which are like big open plan offices where every student has a desk. They're designing creative projects, individual creative projects, and then they're designing beside their peers, so that there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning in the course. And then there are competitions, some of which are national, some of which are regional. So typically in the second year, we have one where we work with Cork County Council on a housing project, and that often leads to a placement for somebody, maybe a first professional placement at the end of their second year over a summer. There's also a national competition across all the schools in Ireland in second year that students compete in. And then later on, there are international awards. For example, our graduates, the school will nominate graduates for the RIVA, which is an international prize for undergraduate medals and postgraduate medals. And similarly, the European Architectural Association as well. So in the past, our graduates have been premiated in some of these competitions.
And can you give examples of some career choices where people have ended up?
Yes, I mean, just to say that I suppose we have only had people graduating from the course since 2010. And while that might sound like a long time to anybody listening, we say that's still very young in architecture, because people don't really get into their stride in the profession probably until their 40s. There's a lot to learn, and the old saw that Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes a long time to build buildings. So it's a long, slow profession, and very rewarding over a lifetime, actually. But what it means is that where we're at the moment, maybe our first cohorts of graduates are only really getting to the point where they might start to be doing their own individual work. Many of them will work for 5 to 10 years in practices in bigger companies first, before maybe setting up their own companies. But even from our very first cohort of graduates, one of them, Owen Horgan, went on to work with a practice, Morgan Marsh in the UK, who won the Sterling Prize, which is the UK's highest national prize for architecture in 2017. And Owen, who had been the project lead for the project, then was up receiving the award on behalf of his company. So, we've seen that straight away from the get-go. The level of our architectural graduates has been absolutely top-notch, and they've gone straight on to the highest levels of the profession internationally.
So clearly the employers have a lot to say about the standard.
Absolutely. I mean, our standards are extremely high and rigorous, as you would expect from the two institutions. And they are also come under a national framework for accreditation. So all of that is reviewed nationally, and indeed internationally. I mean, our external examiners are international as well. So we make sure that we're being benchmarked against the best practice in Europe and further afield.
And what would you say would be the kind of the fun facts about studying architecture at UCC? You did speak about being young and dynamic, the department, or the school, and the building in which you're based. But are there other things you'd say this is a good reason to study at UCC?
I think studying architecture is very collegiate. Students work together very closely in studio environments and have a huge amount of fun together. And anybody I know, myself included, who's ever studied architecture is still really good friends with the people they were in first year with, because people form very, very strong bonds, and it's a very collegiate education. We work very hard, but we do have a lot of fun. And part of it is that we travel abroad to other cities to see their architectural cultures and see the new groundbreaking architecture that are emerging from there as well. So that's a feature of every year in the CCA program, that students go on an organized class trip, usually to another European city, to see the work happening there, both the new emerging architecture, but also the historical architecture that's an aspect of the culture.
John's been very, very fascinating chatting to you. My final question is, I think it's a huge responsibility to be an architect, because you are playing a huge role in changing the visual world and actually the usability of the world.
Absolutely.
How do you teach that? How do you prepare people for that responsibility?
I think because of the length and duration of the course and the kind of complexity of what people are learning, we have different opportunities to investigate different aspects of that as we go along. So, for example, in our second year, there's quite a focus on an issue like universal access and really understanding about how people maybe with disabilities experience space. In other parts of the course, we might have a big focus on environmental design and the ways that buildings use carbon, the way they consume energy, and the ways that we can change that and make that more sustainable. So we're really enthused and positive about the potential for architecture as a course and for our graduates to change the world in really positive ways. And we really try and infuse that into their understanding and appreciation of architecture. And we see this with the students coming in, that they're very keen to engage with the world and try and make a difference in terms of how the world is and to improve the world. And there are lots of opportunities for architects to do that.
Well, thank you very, very much, John. It's been a very, very interesting conversation. And I think for our listeners, the realization that studying architecture, the joint degree between University College Cork and the soon-to-be Munster Technological University, is actually a very exciting opportunity. So we look forward to welcoming you here, and to the employers who may be interested in taking any of our students on placement to make contact with John as the wonderful course coordinator. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Jean.
Employability and career development initiatives are delivered through curricular, co-curricular and extracurricular activities. Over 90% of our programs offer placements internationally and nationally. Throughout your time in UCC, you will have the opportunity to develop employability skills through entrepreneurship modules, skill sessions, and memberships of clubs, societies, becoming a class representative, and getting involved. Throughout your student journey, UCC Career Services will support your career planning with one-to-one career consultations and coaching. The Career Services collaborate with academic departments and other UCC units to deliver bespoke and standalone employability and career-related workshops and events for all students and recent graduates. Our annual recruitment fair is one of the largest national career fairs, featuring up to 100 top graduate employers. For more information about UCC employability initiatives and the Career Services, visit ucc.ie/careers.